Okay, we're rolling. Okay, here we go. Three, two, one. Hold on. Byrne, right, Martha?
Yes. Hmm.
Martha Byrne. Okay, three, two, one. Joining me now is Martha Byrne. I had the privilege of talking to her. Thank you for taking the time. This is a story that I think the whole nation they need to hear, right?
Absolutely. We are every American, and this could happen to, if it happened to my husband and my family, it could happen to anybody in the United States.
So I want to put up on the screen something that just happened, and this is video. I stilled the video, but this is your husband, and he is in. Is this Grand Rapids in this video?
He's in Milan prison in Michigan and right outside of Detroit. Um, and so I had to drop him off there on June 30th, and I'm still in complete shock that it got this far. I can kind of give you the background of how
Yeah.
we ended up there.
Is
So
that
my husband,
is it? Hold on. Is that a? That's not a federal prison, is it?
it is, yes, it's a low
Really?
security federal prison.
Okay, because
It's
I drive by there often, and I know they have state and federal. So he is in a federal prison right now in Michigan, and you're
yeah,
married to him. You live in New York.
New Jersey. New Jersey, yeah, it's over 600 miles away from our home, which violates Donald Trump's First Step Act completely. How he ended up there is a shock because there's plenty of places he could have gone that we could visit him every day, or at least when we were able to, and they've shipped him away so far away.
Yeah, and honestly, many people and you and others say he shouldn't even be in this situation.
Many
Um,
people.
yeah, exactly, and many high-ranking individuals as well. So fill me in that he was a police officer. Give me the backgrounds for people who don't know.
So he was an NYPD sergeant in the early 90s during the highest rate of crime in New York City under Rudy Giuliani. He was part of the street crime unit, my husband, and was earned 78 medals while he was on the NYPD. He was a school safety sergeant in charge of over 40 public and private schools in the Bronx. He was in several shootings, including one in Times Square during New Year's Eve. I mean, he was a busy cop and loved the job. And during a high speed chase, he hit a telephone pole at 50 miles an hour and broke his hip and part of his neck. And he had to retire from the NYPD, which was awful for him. I mean, he was devastated. I mean, he loved the job. Like, he loved the job. So he became a private investigator and really enjoyed that. So he got a routine call in 2016 from a New York based translation company. Her client wanted to find a man and like look at some background checks, asset searches, and she said her client had her millions of dollars stolen from him from his family business, which was in China, but the man was here in New Jersey, and they wanted to see how many houses did he have? Does he have, where's the money? That kind of case. So he hired two NYPD retired detectives with him who were PIs. They did some surveillance. A couple of days, he notified the local police he was doing surveillance every day, that he was armed, make and model of the car. He had receipts for everything, even cash, and never thought about it again. Like, just moved
Really?
on with his life
So
and
that
had.
was it. He did his investigation. He turned over the information. He even told the authorities what he was doing, and then that was it.
That was it. So he did find a lot of properties. I mean, this guy was definitely was up to something, but that's not his job. His job isn't
No,
to solve that issue. It's just to do his job. And
he was just on a fact finding mission. He was hired to find the information. He did, and then that was where it ended for him.
yes, and he only made a few $1,000s on the case,
Wow.
and he really did this because he loved doing the job. Like, I had been on television my whole life. I was on a soap opera for 20 years.
Oh yeah.
We were very comfortable in our lives. I did my job that I'd loved because I loved it, not because we needed the funds per se. And he did the PI work because he loved it. We both worked our whole lives. So anyway, so he moves on. 2017, he did a case for the Vatican. He's worked for presidential candidates. He's done
Wow.
very high level cases in his career. He wasn't like chasing the, cheating husbands and things like that. Like, he was
Yeah.
doing big cases, and his career was doing really well. And in October 28th, 2020, they came to our house and arrested him for the Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, which is not registering as a foreign agent, which was bizarre because he worked for a New York company. Yes, the client happened to have look Chinese or whatever, but like, that he doesn't profile people, like, that's your client, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and for interstate stalking, which, again, he was on a public street. People never saw him. How can you arrest somebody for stalking if the person didn't see you? And we were shocked. So we're like, this is crazy, right? We were going to fight this. And as soon as the government, the DOJ, knew that we were fighting this, they just doubled down and went for the jugular and tried to pressure him. And what they did to us was outrageous. And it was the New Jersey FBI field office. It was the Red Bank office. This is very important for people to know.
Okay.
It was the Brooklyn Eastern District of New York prosecution. So you have a New Jersey field office working with the Brooklyn office, and you're doing an investigation. So anyway, we decided to fight it, and it was insane what we found, which was, again, he did nothing wrong. So he had saved everything. He had every email, every invoice, every text message. He had the same phone that he had. He had transferred all the stuff into a new phone. So he was
Wow.
like, do a timeline, and there was nothing there. It was he had done nothing wrong. So we're like, we got to fight this. Like, this is crazy. And what did they do? Well, we would get our discovery. It would take months, first of all, to get it. It was encrypted, so we couldn't open it. They wouldn't help us. Every interview that they did exonerated Mike. Everything was in his favor. And we thought, well, great. We'll be able to use this in our defense. No, no, no. The subject he was following, there was a $30 million civil lawsuit against him. We're like, well, great. Obviously, this guy had still, and it was like a $15 million judgment. We're like, all these things are beneficial to Mike to show that he did nothing wrong. He was working on a civil matter and he did, anyway, we weren't allowed to use any of that at trial. None of it.
I'm just yeah, I'm just what was the first reaction? My God, it's literally you two had no idea. Randomly, one day, you literally cliche, you get a knock at the door.
Right. No, he is like, what are you doing here? Why are you here?
Yeah.
And there was this, because he's never done anything wrong in his life. And I don't say that with irony. Like, he's the kind of guy that the world needs more of, which
Yeah.
he took the NYPD test when he was 16 years old. He had a
Wow.
dedication to service. He wanted to be of service, and he was his whole life. So when he fought back, they started digging into other things, trying to find other dirt on him. And, and there wasn't any, there was no there. So they made it up. So they took legal private investigative work and made it look like it was like sketchy or weird or like wrong, or like meeting at a Panera Bread for a meeting. Made it look like it was some. When I tell you, when you just asked me like how it felt, I mean,
Yeah.
we did not get one ruling in our favor in 4.5 years. We never got one ruling, not one piece of evidence we wanted to put in, not one motion did we win, not one piece of nothing. We lost everything, everything. So when people say, well, of course, he must have done something. No, if you're lying to a jury, which they did, if you're lying on criminal complaints, FBI, which they did, if you're manufacturing evidence, which they did, and creating a story and then suppressing the good stuff and the exculpatory evidence, then it becomes the prosecutor's stage, and they can convince a jury of anything. And every day was a gut punch to hear them what they did. And we thought we were winning every day because it was so ridiculous,
Yeah.
so ridiculous. And then he was found not guilty of the big one, which was conspiring with a foreign government to violate FAR. And we thought, oh,
Oh.
good, count
Oh.
one, not guilty. And
Yeah.
then he was found guilty of the rest.
So let me I found this and they put out a news release. Of course, they sent it to the media. Department
Right?
of Justice, private investigator sentenced to prison for interstate stalking and harassment. And then under here, a lot of this is kind of confusing. For
Purposely.
acting, yeah, acting as an illegal agent of the People's Republic of China. I mean, he wasn't getting paid from China, right? I mean,
No,
right? Okay,
no,
so
no. He has a
yeah,
bank from a very popular business check from a bank in New York, and he got one wire, I think, for like a couple $100 after the fact. But that's not a crime. Like,
no, and what does this mean when it says to coerce I can't even say the word
repatriate,
repatri repatriation, there it is, of a US resident to the PRC as part of its international I can't even say the word. Why can't I say the word? There
yeah.
you go. Yeah. That doesn't sound like at all what you told me that he was doing at all. Where'd that come from?
No, no. And by the way, the person he was following, which we didn't know when he was arrested, we found out he was a high-ranking Wuhan official who was here in the United States illegally, had committed crimes in the United States, including immigration fraud, real estate fraud, wire fraud. This guy was not a political dissident.
Hmm.
This guy was a criminal, and his family members are criminals. So let me speak DOJ for you
Yeah.
for a second, okay? Coerced a U.S. resident. Do you know what that means? Does that say U.S. citizen? No. Does
No.
that say an American? No. That
No.
means someone living on our soil. That person on the stand said they had no legal status here as of June 2023, and they'd been here since 2009, and there was proof that he had violated, multiple crimes here in the United States. We were not allowed to ask him about any of them. So I'm speaking DOJ.
Okay.
There was no point anywhere in evidence, anywhere, that Mike had anything to do with the whatever was going on this. If they were trying to get this guy to go back to China, he there's I'll give you one text message, Mike
Yeah.
says, okay?
Yeah.
He goes, I think the father's coming here to convince him to pay back the money that he stole. So what I'm saying, like, he doesn't know anything about it. And here's the scary thing. They have known that Mike is innocent since April of 2017. The Newark Red Bank Field Office, New Jersey, has known he is innocent since 2017. They never called him in. They never called in the two other NYPD detectives that did the surveillance with him. They never spoke to two other federal agents that Mike spoke to about this case in 2016 and 17. So they ignored U.S. law enforcement, but they spoke to the Chinese agents. They interviewed them multiple times. Those people perjured themselves. They fled the country. So just to be clear, Christopher Bruno, FBI agent, and
Mm.
Robert Riley, two FBI agents in that office, were working with the CCP, helping assist the CCP over working with our U.S. law enforcement in 2016-17. Now, let me ask you a question. If they had brought those men in, my husband and other people in that world, what's happened since that time? Spy balloons, collegiate infiltration,
Yep.
police stations. You know, when we were at trial, we saw the visas of these guys, these Chinese police officers that came in. One of them said 25 police officers, Chinese police officers, were invited here by us in 2016 to study in Houston, Texas, at our invitation. One of them got a 10-year visa to come here like a revolving door from the State Department. Okay? If you brought these men in who were highly successful, these guys were very, very, very successful law enforcement, U.S. law enforcement. What intel would they have learned from? So, just so you know, we have whistleblowers who have come forward who should have been involved in this case, who are outraged at what has happened here. And the national security of our country was put in the shredder so that they could have a little side. I don't know what was going on, but
Yeah.
I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot in 4.5 years. It's not good. I mean,
So,
Christopher Wray just came out that Christopher Wray was shielded from this 2020 election, Chinese ballots, filled out in Albany.
yep.
And I wrote the book In the Interest of Justice, which just came out.
I'll put a link to that down below for anyone. I'll put a link to it. Okay.
But what's important is I discovered that connection when I did my research on my book. How this was all part of some sort of Chinese optics right before the election. My husband was arrested a week before the election in 2020. So, I don't own a tinfoil hat. I am not that person, but I'll tell you something. If you're going to put my family in danger and you're going to put my entire life and my family's life in the public eye and as my husband a spy for China, you better believe that I'm going to uncover everything that I can. And now he's sitting in a federal prison because they were having their little whatever they were doing, down there.
Putting on a very basic level, I'm looking here and summarizing that he was illegally acting on behalf of the Chinese government and engaging in interstate stalking conspiracy. So the people that hired him initially, are they facing charges? Are they?
Nope.
So who are they? Who are the people who hired him?
So this is a New York-based translation company in Queens. It was
Okay.
called TransPerfect Language
Okay.
Services. Okay. Mike was hired. that by that person, did a contract, did a retainer agreement, said
Okay.
that if something happens to him, they would have to pay the legal fees.
Mm.
He was this. It was there was no foreign connection, none. So at trial, thank God, somebody realized that they had saved their text messages from 2016 that my husband was recommended for this case, hold on to your hat, by a former US attorney in New Jersey.
That's how they found him.
That's no, that's how my husband was recommended for this case, meaning,
By that company. They
well, it's just like
Yeah.
this was a lawyer, there was a lawyer looking for somebody. This is there it's like
Yeah.
I'll keep it simple. Here's the bottom line.
Wow. Wow.
I'll keep it simple.
Wow.
If the FBI did their job in this case, and they spoke to the translator back in 2016-17, she'd say, well, my client brought the name Michael McMahon. Okay, let's do investigation 101. Oh, really? Let's go to the client. Mr. Client, where did you get the name Michael McMahon?
Yeah.
I got it from an attorney. Oh, where's the attorney? In Queens. Where did that person get it from? A US attorney. This would have taken them one day. They would have found out that he was recommended from someone here in the United States and had nothing to do with the foreign government at all. But they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to, and it's a disgrace what has happened here. And I know it sounds complicated, but the bottom line is he did legal private investigative work. He didn't do anything illegal. Everything he did was within the scope of what he's allowed to do.
I
But
mean, is it his job? The private investigative world, I don't know a lot about it, but is it his job to also investigate the people who hire him? I mean, is he supposed to?
sure. I mean, he did. So
he-
when you searched her, this translation company comes right up. It came
oh,
right up on, this was a legitimately, and she did translations for other cases. They were there. So when I was researching, I'm like, but she was not arrested. And she was not arrested. So I
oh,
believe that she's an informant or something on that level. I don't know.
okay.
I'm just saying I believe that she had some other role in this case, and I'm very detailed about it in the book, and the reader can read it in its most basic terms, and they can decide what happened here. Okay,
And
because I have all the evidence.
yeah, and it's important. I'm going to put a link to that because I should have read it. I haven't yet, but I'm reading here that this effort was part of Operation Fox Hunt and Skynet,
Yeah.
A Chinese program that targets people living abroad who are wanted by the PRC. Well, if that's the case, I'll ask, did he get caught up in this without even knowing anything about it?
Nobody knew anything about it. I mean, there was nobody there was no, the only article that was even remotely available, if he even thought about that in 2016, was some random article from 2015 that was like in the hard paper. There was no information. And we had a former colonel who worked under Obama and Trump wrote a letter to the judge saying there's no way back in 2016 that someone of Michael's position as a civilian would have known anything about this Operation Fox Hunt. But I'm going to give you one. I'm going to give you one more.
Yeah.
They did not bring in. They walled off the New York field office, who was in charge of Fox Hunt operations. They didn't even bring them into this case in New Jersey. They walled him off.
They didn't testify or nothing.
They didn't even bring them in to even be part of this case, and that was wrong. If you're working in New Jersey and you have no experience in fox hunt, okay, you don't know what fox hunt is, you have no experience, and you don't bring in people who are within the own agency, within the FBI, who are the experts in the field. What is really going on here? Why are you walling off that person? Why were they not included into this case? So there's a million questions
Yeah,
here.
their news release kind of infers here that the camp, where is it here? He gathered private information, did surveillance, shared it with the PRC officials. That's not what you're saying.
Of course
When
not.
when I read that, I am thinking he emailed the Chinese officials, like literally. Here you,
No,
yeah,
no, there's no,
that's how that
nothing.
reads. That's how that
There's not.
reads.
There's not one text message, not one email that mentions the Chinese government. Nothing.
Wow.
They know that too. Okay, this is what's so disturbing and scary. is that they had plenty of evidence that he was innocent, and they would continue search warrants. They lied on search warrants. They illegally spied on us. They our privacy has been completely violated by these rogue FBI agents and the Eastern District of New York prosecutors. Okay, they were working in their own little bubble and sacrificed our safety and the American people's safety, because there's something called the duty to warn in this country.
Okay.
If they have an obligation, if you have been targeted by a foreign adversary, they have an obligation in this country to tell you that you've been targeted. Okay. And it's happened. They've happened in many, many cases. Other PIs were warned and said, hey, they're after you. And then they were
Well,
left alone.
let me interrupt you. Let me so I make put my head around it. And I'm sorry for taking the time. My wife and I, we do social media sometimes for some companies. Let's say I am reached out to by company X and they
Mhm.
hire me and I'm like, okay, I'm doing your social, I'm doing this. Can it This sounds like kind of the same thing. Like, and then it turns out, oh, Dave was working with the Chinese or Russia. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Right. I mean, it
Yeah, I mean, you're a third. See, listen, you're subcontracted, right? You're
yeah.
subcontracted. I'll give you an even better one.
Okay.
You hire a painter to paint your house. He gets paid by the owner of the house. The owner of the house turns out to be have some connection to the Chinese government. Now you're looking at federal prison for the next 18 months. They could do that now,
I
based on what they did to my husband. But here's the good news.
Wow.
There is some good news in this.
Okay.
That in October of 2024, there was the government oversight committee, James Comer's oversight committee, did a report on the CCP. And they went through every single agency, 25 agencies across the board, and did an analysis on their handling of the CCP. The Department of Justice got a failing grade because of Mike's case, because of my husband's case. In
Wow.
detail, they say this should, I'm paraphrasing, of course, this looks to be government weaponization, and he should not have been charged. Okay. On day one of Pam Bondi swearing in, she clarified the FARA law and the rule of completion law for defendants to be able to defend themselves in court. I see that as a win because I know
Yeah.
it's our case. I believe it's our case that has moved that needle to the
Wow.
proper lane. Okay.
Wow.
Yes, it's big because if you're subcontracted by anybody, they could do anything they want. If
I
they could,
It's
it's,
scary. It could easily be me or you or us. And I'm reading here, Representative Mike Lawler from New York said, quote, I strongly disagree with the sentencing. I believe the charges brought by the DOJ against Mr. McMahon were wrong from the start. I will continue to support his efforts of miscarriage of justice. And it's not just him, Pete Sessions, as you said as well. So, I mean, it's not just you saying this. There are lawmakers on record saying this is BS.
yes, and I have to. Mike Lawler has been a hero from the beginning. Before he was even elected, he came to a fundraiser and he said he listened to the story. He said, "If I'm elected, I will help you." And I need to give Mike Lawler the shout out that he deserves because he has answered every email, every text message if there was one with his staff or whoever, whatever I needed. He has, and I'm not one of his constituents. I'm just an American that he knows was wronged, and he helped us, and he believed in Mike. So God bless him. He is a hero in our minds and our hearts.
Wow.
And it has gone all up. Even Ed Martin, who's now the pardon attorney and also the weaponization czar, there's a quote from him in my book about what happened to Mike was an overreach and a weaponization. So we were invited to Trump's inauguration by people in his camp to come. So there's many, many, many people who know Mike is innocent. It's now time to get him out. The man is sitting in federal prison for doing nothing wrong. He did his job. He is a hero. I mean, if they did this to him, they did it to the president of the United States too. I mean, they made things up. People don't understand. People don't know how easy it is for them because they get immunity and nothing happens to them and there's no accountability. And most people take plea deals. 99% take plea deals.
Yeah.
99% of people are indicted and 99% take plea deals because they want to bankrupt you. It's millions of dollars to fight these cases. It is debilitating physically and emotionally. You
Wow.
are targeted
We
targeted by the public. And the
Is
media
there
the media, forget the media. The media was awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
They presume you were guilty. He was guilty. That's how the media worked,
No, they were
probably.
told he was guilty
They-
by the PR team on the side of the government.
yeah.
And I will tell you this. I have a million examples of how dangerous they put our family in danger. They put our family in danger. The media put my family in danger. And if they think that I'm going to stop until it's rectified and someone's held accountable, they're nuts. But here's an example. The alleged victim is a high-ranking Wuhan official. He's taking the stand. Not one person in the media covered it. It was an open court. Where's the media?
They
We're
didn't.
talking about in 2023, after Wuhan, he was a high-ranking guy. He was like a mayor. He was in charge of building projects and fire codes, and he fled. Nobody was there to cover that. Nobody asked him a question when he left the courtroom. What if that doesn't tell you the government is in charge of the media when it comes to this stuff? I don't know what does.
Oh no, absolutely. I remember I would sit in the newsroom and we would get, spoon-fed information on what we should cover and where and what, yeah, you're exactly right. And if they don't want you to cover it, they'll make sure you don't really know about it unless you know what to look for.
Right. And but I was out there talking, and I couldn't speak about this. These we my husband, like, we had to be quiet. We had to stay quiet because I got a letter from the government in 2023 of June trying to silence me because of my tweets. They were the heavy-handedness that how they treated my family, and they protected the CCP members here and assisted them with their immigration and the civil lawsuit against them. Okay? We have a big problem here. And it wasn't just my family, meaning if you're not protecting the New Jersey residents, they never told the local police that this guy was like people were. I went to the local police. I walked into these police stations and said, "Do you know what was going on in your neighborhood? Do you know that there's allegedly all these like Chinese guys flying over here and like driving through?" And no.
They had no idea.
And let me give you one more example. Okay,
Wow.
how they work. Okay, so this whole thing in the case was that there was some meeting at a mall between the alleged victim and his father who had flown over here from China. There was a meeting in a mall, and Mike's like, I have detailed reports. I was never at a mall. The cell data, he was never at a mall. Not one piece of evidence was shown at trial that there was a meeting at a mall. They made it up. They took a picture from some other thing and they created a whole story, and they made those victims, alleged victims, lied about it on the stand that it happened. It never happened. It never happened. But here's the problem. They write about it in the criminal complaint in October of 2020, right? The sworn statement from this FBI guy.
Yeah.
They carried it all the way to Mike's sentencing. They knew it wasn't true, and they still did it. There has to be accountability. There has to be no more immunity for prosecutors, no more immunity for FBI agents. You th- then things will change. Until then, nothing's going to change. If they can get away with it and lie with no accountability, I wouldn't act like that.
Yeah.
Mike's like on the NYPD. You would be a pariah. You would be lose your job. You'd lose your pension. You'd be ostracized by the total all of NYPD. If he had behaved like this FBI agent had behaved, and
Yeah.
if he had lied about evidence, he should be locked up.
Wow. Um, two final questions. I ask why should everyone care? And they should, because what you just said earlier about the painter example, or even myself. Dave gets hired by a company to do social media. I'm doing a good job, I'm promoting, and then all of a sudden I get a knock on the door. Something like this could literally happen to anyone in this country.
Anybody, they could target anybody if they also can make it up if they want to get you. Like they can find if they can falsify evidence in my husband's case to create a case, nobody is exempt. Nobody. And the fact that we're fighting this, and Mike said to me before he went in, he goes, I feel like I'm getting deployed. I feel like I'm getting deployed to help the American people and fight for them. And I said, you're the voice for the voiceless. You know how many people suffer in silence and they lose everything, their house, their everything, and they're bankrupt and they're rotting in prison somewhere because some prosecutor wanted a nice shiny statue on their wall of what they did to these people. But here's another thing I want you to understand. This is very important. I have spoken to former U.S. attorneys who are outraged by this behavior of the current administration, this last administration. I have spoken to FBI agents who are still like, there are good people out there, the whistleblowers who have come forward to help. We have to weed out the people who don't love this country and who put themselves before country. Okay? We
Yeah.
have to do that. And my husband is literally suffering right now before and I pray to God that Donald Trump pardons him. I pray to God because we want to help other people. And the sooner he's out and the sooner he's done with this nightmare, we can help more people. I want to. That has to be part of why this happened. So we can help other people.
Yeah, and they say things happen for a reason. I believe that. Sometimes I don't understand it. But in your world, a pardon, would be welcome. And then it sounds like you're saying that's not it for you. If his name is cleared, it sounds like him and you are going to go on a mission to bring this sort of thing to light and to help others.
We already have it. It's already started.
Wow.
The Pipe Hitter Foundation, which is who helped us, Eddie Gallagher's foundation, the pipehitterfoundation.org, if you want to check it out.
Yes.
They help first responders and military who are falsely accused. We are going to help them. I already have had several meetings in DC about helping other people. I have other cases that I'm working on right now. I'm going to be going to a hearing of a falsely accused police officer at the end of July.
Wow.
I'm not stopping, okay? And my husband needs to be the pillar for someone else who's going to be suffering, and he's willing and wants to do that. And he needs to be by my side to tell his story so that the next person doesn't feel so alone. But we are far, far from done. Far from done. I mean, there's an investigation already going on in other areas about this case, so it is far from over.
This is I found it right here. Is this the organization, I believe, their website?
Yes, yes, and then if you go Michael McMahon, he has his own page, so you can hear more about the updates from his case,
Okay.
and they're
Okay.
incredible. They were with us from the beginning. They have been with us by our side every step of the way. I what their work that they do is just incredible. And Eddie and Andrea Gallagher are our heroes, and they were the first organization to reach out and say, "We believe you." And
Okay.
when you've been treated like you were in the media, and people driving by our house and photographing my children and following us, thinking that my husband is some terrible person, when that phone call comes and someone believes you, it is. I can't tell you how I wept, cried. I felt like I was heard for the first time, and that's why also I had to go public because you're putting my family in danger. You're putting out one story that isn't true, and I have to fight for the truth. And my husband is a hero, and what they vilified him, and the judge gave him 18 months, not because he did anything wrong, not because he broke the law. He said because he has no remorse for the victims. There's a couple things about that that's a problem. He knows who they are because they're criminals. A, they testified and lied on the stand to put him in federal prison. So forgive me if I don't have any sympathy for these people, okay? They perjured themselves to try to put my husband and succeeded to put him in federal prison. They are not citizens. They are enemies. As far as I'm concerned, if you're coming here and you're not allowed to stay and you're denied and you're denied and you're denied, that means that you're not welcome here. That means someone decided you are not welcome here,
Yeah.
okay? But protecting them and helping them on the federal level, ah,
Wow.
this is not our country. I'm sorry. It has to be remedied. It has to be.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time and that pardon when it comes down. I would love to meet you in at the prison as he walks out.
Okay, it's a
Um,
deal.
yeah, and thank you for getting. I know you said obviously you've been in front of a camera your most of your life. This is not what you thought you'd be doing, probably. Um, but
No,
you
but it's
have
the
the
most
passion,
important.
and it for brave of you to stand up and I'm going to put all the links to your book and also
Thank
this website from this the Pipe Hitter Foundation. I didn't even know
thank
about them, so I'm going to put that in there too. And you're going to have to keep me updated.
I will. Thank you so much for having me on. I mean, you understand. I have a platform only because I did what I did for a living. So I feel like God had a plan. I think it was all leading up to this moment to say, like, I worked for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital for years, and because I had a platform, I could help raise awareness, and I feel like I've been given this gift of a support system in the public, and I want to use it. I never thought I'd use it for this, but now seeing what they did to my husband, and I will. I give it over to God. Use us in a way that you need us to be helpful. And I've been with my husband for 34 years. We've never spent more than 2 weeks apart in 34 years. So
Wow.
to not be able to talk to him, and I feel like I can't explain it. I just wander around kind of my house, like,
Wow.
you know, and I can't just pick up a phone and call him. And when he calls me, I hear it in his voice. He's heartbroken.
Wow.
He's heartbroken. And they've done a terrible thing here. They've done a terrible thing.
Keep me updated.